know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk Lotta Pod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley, and it is just me today, but not for long. Dylan is out of town, and so we are taking this opportunity to release our guest list audio. We've done this for a couple years now, where we have on some guests, and they tell us about their favorite albums of the year. So today, we are going to be joined by Dr. Good Friend Cory, Dave Brown, host of the podcast One Band Five Songs, and Jason W., writer of the newsletter Songs About Chocolate and Girls. And they each picked a couple albums to talk about, and I think it's a really eclectic batch of records that you're going to hear about. I'm not going to waste any more time. You can follow us on all forms of social media, at PunkLottoPod, patreon.com/PunkLottoPod, where you can also listen to my solo Best of 2024 series, where I broke down my favorite EPs, splits, singles, demos, reissues, and biggest disappointments of 2024. You can sign up for $1, get access to all of our weekly bonus audio, get all of those pieces of audio. Though, if you don't want to sign up, you can also purchase the Best of 2024 audio either individually or as a collection. So if you don't want to sign up and then drop off after a certain amount of time, that's fine. You can just outright just buy these. So head over to patreon.com/PunkLottoPod and enjoy the show. All right, everyone. Today we are joined by good friend Cory, many time guest on the podcast. Cory, welcome back.
Thank you. You have to call me Dr. Good Friend Cory now.
That's right. You became a doctor since the last time you were on. Dr. Good Friend Cory.
Good Friend Cory, comma, PhD.
Yeah. Well, how was your 2024 then? That's a pretty big one right there.
Yeah, most of it was spent becoming Dr. Good Friend Cory.
Yeah.
I don't remember when the last time I was on the pod. Was I on at all 2024? Maybe very early.
We did the Exploding Hearts episode. Was that this year or was that last year?
I cannot remember.
I can't either. It might have been I don't know. It might have been last year. It just went by faster. It feels like it happened this year, but I don't know if it did.
Yeah, but we didn't do a best of 2023, so
yeah.
This is going to be a 4-hour pod.
Yeah, so you got to make up for last year. You're going to bring all the ones you had from last year.
Yeah.
And talk about them this year. Yeah, we didn't get you on last year. We attempted to, and just schedules didn't line up. We were both pretty busy around that time of year, and yeah, I don't even remember the exact reason why, but we got you here now. And
yeah, it's good. I'm excited to talk about some music and think about the year that was.
Yeah. Do you have any overall feelings on music in 2024?
Not really any big ones. I thought that I listened to less new music than in years previous, and I think I can kind of attribute that to just being busy. But then when I actually look at what I've listened to this year, I kind of stopped formally tracking it about midway through the year. Like usually, you and I've talked about this many times. I usually have like a little notes app thing happening where I'm tracking everything I listen to. I just is that train picking up on the mic?
Yes, it did.
We'll give it a second.
That was so loud. It was like a hockey team scored a goal.
I live right by the train tracks. That's what's going to happen. It might have just been a warning blast, so we might not get any more. I stopped keeping track of what I was listening to midway through the year. No, there's that train again.
The train wants you to keep track of your list.
It definitely is. I'm going back to it this year. We'll talk about that in a second. Anyway, I felt like I listened to less new music than I did over time, but I think I actually listened to probably the same amount of new music as in previous years. I just wasn't really great in the record keeping department. I still listened to a ton of new music, still found things to be excited about. I think that when I sat down to actually look at what I listened to and how I listened to music, it didn't really line up with how I felt I listened to music. When you first asked me to come on and do this, I thought, I don't even know if I have favorite albums of the year. I just, for some reason, the space between what I actually did and what I actually listened to and what I thought I did and thought I listened to was really far apart. I listened to a ton of albums this year repeatedly and felt really excited about a lot of new music this year. I don't know. Maybe it was just the way I went about it was different. Like I don't know. This was the year that for me, Pitchfork kind of fell apart as a source for finding new music. I think that probably can be attributed to their sort of takeover by Condé Nast, and well, I guess it was a couple of years ago, but it was really noticeable. They got rid of their editor in chief this year and kind of shifted things around. And yeah, I just found the quality of journalism and the quality of reviews not what I was looking for in a way that maybe it had in previous years. So yeah, I don't know. I just did a lot more digging on my own, I guess, but in a way that maybe felt less formal than in years previous. So that's a long-winded way of saying no, I don't really have any exciting thoughts about music in 2024.
It's funny. Dylan kind of brought up the same thing when he was talking about the albums of 2024, saying that he didn't think it was like a really strong year or like a really big year. But when he went back to look at everything, that's when he's like, oh, I have tons of records that I loved this year. So
yeah,
I don't know what it was about this year that it made it seem, because I think even for myself, I thought maybe like midway into the year, I was like, is this a strong year? I can't tell or not. And I'm not sure what it was that made it feel like that, but
yeah. And I want to kind of save this thought maybe for a little bit later when we're talking about one of the albums on my list in particular. But I have another maybe connecting thought about why that is, like why that might be the perception of how we listen to music. Yeah, I'll save that for a bit though.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you ready to get into it?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good to go.
All right. Well, what do you want to talk about first?
Well, I sent you my list in alphabetical order, and then I wrote my notes in alphabetical order. I'm happy to go about it in alphabetical order as well.
That works for me.
Yeah, all right. First up on my list is Cassandra Jenkins and her album My Light, My Destroyer, which came out in July. I really loved her last album a couple years ago. That was probably on my year-end list a couple years ago. There's going to be some repeats from a couple years ago because just in the cycle of new music releases, there's a couple artists I think that end up releasing an album every 2 or 3 years and ended up on the list again this year. I saw Cassandra Jenkins in an old church in Portland, Oregon in September or October, I can't remember, this fall. And it came at a time for me where I felt like live music was not for me anymore. Like I was feeling like live music hadn't captured that same, I don't know, kind of excitement that it did for a long time. Like I've been going to shows since I was 14 years old. And I thought that maybe it was me who had changed. Like I thought I was just maybe getting old and cranky. But I actually think that it's something different. And seeing Cassandra Jenkins at this old church in Portland was really exciting and really helpful in helping me kind of think through what was going on. I think, probably like many of us, for all kinds of reasons, I haven't seen as much live music in the last 5 years. COVID really shut things down for me. And I don't think I saw a show between 2020 and 2023. I probably went to a couple local punk shows, but didn't see anything big. And I live in a small city, and not a lot of touring acts come through. And if I want to go and see a bigger show in Vancouver, it's a whole thing. So, seeing live music has not taken up the same space as it maybe once did in my life. This is an unfinished thought, so I'd be curious to hear your perspectives on it as well. I think what seeing Cassandra Jenkins helped me realize was that it's not actually live music that is not as exciting anymore, but it's this like professionalization of music that for me was the problem. Like what I find exciting about live music is that you never know what's going to happen. And I saw two artists that I loved for a long time, really close together. I saw Waxahachie in August. I saw Billy Bragg in September, and then I saw Cassandra Jenkins in October. And seeing Waxahachie and Billy Bragg, again, two artists that I love. I've loved Billy Bragg since I was 14. I've loved Waxahachie for a very long time now. I'm going to talk about Waxahachie later. But there was nothing that felt like spontaneous or exciting. Like I felt like I could predict everything that was going to happen when I was seeing them. And I'm just wondering if that's maybe because of this like post-COVID music landscape. Shows are more expensive. Touring costs have gone up. Venue costs have gone up. I was just wondering maybe like if artists are feeling the pressure to like put on more of a like capital S show. Maybe audiences are expecting more or are expecting something more polished. And I don't know, I worry about that like creeping professionalism, because I think it takes away some of the spontaneity, and I think it takes away some of the excitement. And that's what I got with Cassandra Jenkins. Like I found myself engaged. I found myself like just excited to see what was going to happen next. I found myself excited to see how the songs would differ in a live setting versus recorded. And they did. Like she had a backing band that was just, I don't know, interpreting these songs in a really interesting way. It wasn't just a replication of what was on the record.
Well, thinking about the bands I saw this year, I think I only went to 2 shows this year, which is kind of sad to really think about, because going to shows is like one of my absolute favorite things. And even since getting older, I guess I've gone to less in general, just because of work and time and just being tired. I'm at that age where now it's like, oh, do I want to stay out super late and then drive home really late at night? So it's got to be somebody like I really want to see. Right. And so like the 2 that I saw this year were Teenage Fan Club and Five Iron Frenzy, who are both like all-time favorite bands. Mm-hmm. And with Five Iron, I drove to Atlanta to see them after work, and I got home at like 3 a.m. and I was tired as shit, but I had so much fun.
Yeah.
And then Teenage Fan Club, it was amazing to see them because, they're from Scotland, and like they don't come to the US a ton. Yeah. And I think even the last time they had been in the US was right before the pandemic. So I definitely wanted to make a point to see them. And seeing like the last show before that was like Superchunk in October of 23. And I've seen Superchunk a ton of times. But so the bands that I've seen, I guess they don't really have that putting on a show element. Teenage Fan Club might to a degree, just because they've been, a band since the late 80s and touring pretty consistently throughout the entire time. But even them, if you look at their set list from night to night, it changes. Yeah. So it's not 100% the same. The Five Iron tour was like a weekend tour, so it wasn't even like a full, national multi-week tour thing. So that felt a little more unique. And then they were also playing specifically like their first 3 albums. So it was like a throwback set. So yeah, I don't know if I saw too many just like working bands. I mean, Teenage Fan Club, I guess, but they're almost my legacy act at this point. Kind of like seeing like Billy Bragg would be, Yeah. Been around forever, Yeah. They know what they're doing on stage. But so I haven't really noticed that, what you're talking about, but maybe that is also part of why I haven't gone to too many shows either. Like there hasn't been that, oh, I got to go see this band, Yeah. That may just be location and time, but
I remember a couple of years ago, I don't even remember how long ago this was, but I remember reading something from Isaac Brock from Modest Mouse, and he was talking about how Honest Mouse had shifted as a live act over time. That they had become more competent. They had become more professional, in a sense. And part of that was his realization that with a growing audience, the band was getting bigger. They were playing bigger venues. There was shifting expectations on the audience's perspective. Like, they didn't want to see drunk and fucked up Isaac Brock anymore. They wanted to see someone. They wanted to see the songs that they wanted to see. And he felt, with rising ticket costs, that there was an accountability to the audience. I don't know. Again, it's an unfinished thought. Maybe the problem is still me. But I know that, and I'm not saying this as a criticism at all. This is probably, or it's my problem. I'm just thinking about, like, in contrast, the last time I saw Waxahachie in 2019, I probably paid $20, and in 2024, I paid $70 to see the band, and there was a really significant difference between the kind of live experience. In some ways, better, like a tighter band, like much stronger vocalist. I walked away from that feeling like, I didn't really want to just hear the record. I didn't really just want to hear the songs played as they are recorded.
Do you think this might be a factor? It seems like smaller bands are having a really hard time touring right now. Like, they're not touring as much, and when they go out on tour, they're not making as much money as they used to. That's, a lot of factors leading into that, but economy being bad probably takes a big chunk out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of bands that I feel like I should have seen come through my area, tour through my area, that I feel like didn't. And maybe that specific, like, feel that you're describing that you want tends to come from those smaller bands, like those more DIY, more, maybe they're not on a huge label or anything like that, but the energy feels a little rawer at those kind of shows than, like, the pro band who, good label, good tour packages, that kind of stuff. So maybe that's part of it, because the ones you described seeing this year are all pretty big-ish bands, bands, that middle class band, I guess is how you could describe it. They're not an arena band, but they're not like playing the punk clubs or house shows,
Exactly. Yeah. I am recognizing that I am at least a part of the issue. but also it's perhaps more just, I don't know, just adjusting my own expectations, maybe. Yeah. I mean, that's a whole roundabout way of and not talking at all about the music on Cassandra's album. But I had been looking forward to this for quite a while. It's a bit of a shift from her last album. It's a little bit more straight ahead. There's still some really interesting, like, I don't know, experimental flourishes to it. But I like on this record that she kind of went back to a traditional rock band setup, like guitar and drums, and again, still with lots of, like, flourishes and electronic touches. But yeah, really love this album.
I didn't get to listen to the whole record because I got your list pretty late last night,
Sorry.
That's fine. But I just kind of skimmed everything you sent me that I wasn't already familiar with. There were a couple records you chose that I was familiar with, and there were a few that I was like, oh, I should come back and listen to this whole record, because this is one that I started and I listened to the first track, and it starts off as mostly stripped back, fairly straight ahead singer-songwriter, mostly acoustic song. But then the next song was like a full band rock thing. And I was like, oh, okay. I in my head, I don't think I knew exactly what Cassandra Jenkins was supposed to sound like. And I was a little surprised, I guess, at the rock edge to it. I was kind of more just expecting a general singer-songwriter album. And like I think I listened to like the first 4 tracks of it, and I really enjoyed tracks 2 and 3 the most. And it's definitely a record that I should come back to and listen to. It just wasn't really on my radar at all this year.
Yeah, give it a shot. I think that there's lots of overlap between your and my tastes, and if we look at the things that we listen to throughout the year, there's probably lots of overlap, but also lots of divergences in like what really hits for me and like really becomes something I spend a lot more time with. That's another way of saying I'm not going to talk a whole lot about punk today. But I am going to talk about punk now on the second. which is the Chisel's What a Fucking Nightmare. I have unfortunately not yet had the time to listen to your and Dylan's 3.5 hour extravaganza. But was this on either of your lists?
It wasn't. No. What we did this year was more of a collaborative list. So we each chose records that we both listened to this year for the most part. And I don't know that Dylan spent any time with this record, so it didn't make the cut. But this record, yeah, this record rules. Like, this is probably in my personal top 20 of the year for sure.
Yeah, I think they're one of the best and most consistent punk bands in the 2020s. I'm just always excited to hear a new song. Always excited. I think that their songwriting grew on this album. I think "Cry Your Eyes Out" is probably one of the best punk songs of the year. Just a great record front to back.
Yeah, I really liked the last record they did, and when this one came out, like my first listen through, I was like, "Whoa, they blew it out of the water. Like, they made this one so much better than the last record," and I was a huge fan of that album. So yeah, "Cry Your Eyes Out" is a phenomenal song. Like, that's one of those songs that's like it feels like it should stand the test of time as like one of the best songs from this era, because it's an incredible song.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, I'm going to save this thought for later, but I think that probably the way that people continue to encounter and listen to music makes that increasingly more difficult.
Yeah, they were going back to like the live show that you were talking about earlier. They were supposed to do a big tour of the US that got screwed up just due to bullshit scene politics, basically.
Yep.
And they were supposed to come through North Carolina, and that's a show that I probably would have gone out of my way to go see, because one, they're an international band, you don't get them all the time, but that record was so good that I can't help but imagine seeing them live would capture that, what you were describing, that raw energy. So that would have been something really cool to see.
Yeah, and that's also probably a part of why, at least, the problem is mine in some ways, that I'm just not going to as many DIY punk shows as I once did. But also, even in that space, I don't know how to word this without coming off like a cranky old conservative, because that's not where I'm coming from at all in this. Of course I want bands to make money, and of course I want the money that, what little money exists in DIY punk and hardcore spaces, I want that to flow to bands, and I want that to flow to independent venues. But I have a hard time like grappling with local shows being $20 and $25 now.
I haven't been to a local show in so long that I don't even know how much they are around here either.
Yeah, they're probably $20 to $25.
I'm trying to think of the last like small venue show that I went to, and it was like an Asheville show a couple years ago, and so even that might have been less than 20. But it also might have been 20 because it was like City of Caterpillar. So like it might have been 20. I don't remember.
I don't think that we need $5 shows anymore, but where are the $10 to $12 shows? Because also, like, I'm thinking of the 17-year-olds who are getting into music. Like, I didn't have $20 to $25 every week to go to a show when I was 17. I had $5 to $10.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not much of a local scene where I live as far as my town. So I have to go to like Charlotte or Asheville or, elsewhere to find like more vibrant of a scene.
Yeah. And
I think the problem with that here where I live is there's no venues really for DIY type stuff. There is like one, I haven't been to any of their shows yet, but there's like a place not too far from me that's like a farmhouse that they've been doing shows at.
Okay.
And it's like a bunch of like younger, like 20 somethings putting these shows on. It's a lot of bands I don't know. They're all local, indie music, some punky stuff, but
Yeah.
that's like the only scene that I'm kind of aware of. Maybe I should go to more of those, just to see
See what's happening.
what's going on.
Yeah. See what the youth are doing.
Yeah. Or they'll be like, oh, who's this cop? Get him out of here.
Look at his hair.
Look at this old guy.
Did you have this next one on your list? I can't remember if we talked about this at all. This is Friko, Where We've Been, Where We've Gone.
So this is a record that I did listen to. It didn't make like my list. I'm trying to think of where I would have placed it. It wasn't very high on my list this year.
Okay.
But I did listen to it and I did enjoy it. I think my biggest drawback on this was the length. It's kind of a longer record, but
It's kind of a record, yeah. I think that in a different year, this band could have been, something like what Black Country New Road is or was. This album gives me like that same kind of excitement about young people making music that Black Country New Road does. I think that there are some, like, if you are a fan of emo, if you're a fan of indie rock, this is something you should definitely check out. There's really clever songwriting. What I like about the album, yes, it is longer, but I really like the way that they work in kind of repeating, not necessarily like lyrical repetition, but like the album just sounds really consistent. I don't know if they're just like playing around with similar keys or anything like that, but there's just like repeated motifs and sounds and structures that make it feel like a real cohesive album, which again, I think is maybe hard to find. I think that a lot of the ways that people encounter music is through single songs rather than albums as a whole.
Yeah, I think most people listen to just songs. It which feels weird to me, because it's just like, don't you want to hear what else they've done? Like, what is it about just that one song is the only thing that interests you, But yeah, I that could just be, I don't know. I was gonna say that could be like playlistification of everything, but that's not the case. Because like even when I was in college and like the early, in the mid 2000s, I encountered so many people who were just like, oh, I just have a bunch of songs.
For sure.
So they're not album people. So they've just always kind of been there. I guess the radio is what trained people to be that way. But
300 songs on an iPod shuffle.
Yeah. You got to pick and choose instead of, well, I got the entire REM discography on here.
Yeah. I would really like to see Friko live sometime. I don't know if they've come up this way. I know they did some touring this year, but I don't know if they made it to Canada, but I'd really like to see them.
I do think Friko is a band that Friko or Friko? Do we know exactly?
Friko, I have no idea.
Yeah, I've never heard them say it, so I guess
I would say Friko. I hope it's not Frick.
What the Friko? I think a lot of the style of music they play seems like it should be pretty popular right now, but I think the oxygen is being taken up by MJ Lenderman and Wednesday, because they're kind of in that same lane doing a sort of similar thing. That Lenderman record was on like every list you could find this year too, which honestly, I get tired of lists that just have the same records on them over and over again.
Yeah,
Because
for
it's
sure.
like, all right, I know people like this record. Tell me about something else that you like.
Totally. Yeah, I did like that album, the MJ Lenderman one. It didn't make my list, but I did enjoy it. It just wasn't one that I went back to a ton. This next one, I know we talked about this one earlier in the year, and this is the one that surprised me the most. If you had asked me the week before if I would ever listen to an album by this band, I would have told you no. I would have told you that, like most reasonable people, I could not get past the name. I don't know what came over me in February or so that made me work to get over the name, but this is Hurray for the Riff Raff. The past is still alive.
Take it all back in the nick of time. Maybe even be a good friend of mine, baby. And we won't have to cry if we don't want to cry. Maybe I got something left in this heart of pine. A wash in the sand on the beach of time, baby. You know that time can take you for a ride, can take you by surprise. Maybe you're all snake eyes, baby. Tell me why you gotta play your luck. Do aces call your bluff? I love you very much, and all that other stuff.
I don't ever want to say that name out loud again. I didn't like saying it. I don't like reading it. But if you can work as hard as I did to get over that band name, it's a really, really rewarding album. It stuck with me all year long. I listened to it all the time. I listened to it on road trips. I listened to it on long walks. I think of the album as almost like a collection of short stories, just super, super smart and clever songwriting, and just had a little bit of everything that I wanted to hear this year. It had like sad songs, it had hopeful songs, it had loud songs, it had quiet songs. I loved this record. I didn't expect to love this record as much as I did.
The name Hurray for the Riff Raff makes me think of bands like Clap Your Hands, Say Yeah, or Pretty Girls Make Graves. Like, it feels like a very like early 2000s style band name, but also it's not the kind of music that you'd expect with a name like that.
No.
Like I was expecting more like, I don't know, something kind of synthy maybe, but it's like the exact opposite. It's very like folk and country and
Americana. I think that if you are someone who liked the last two Waxahachie albums and you have not heard this Hurray for the Riff Raff album, I think that you should give it a shot, because I think it is worth your time. Colossus of Rhodes is probably one of the best songs this year. Really beautiful song. At least in part, about the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando a couple of years ago. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about it.
I will say they were on CBS Saturday morning one day this year when I was rolling breaks for CBS weather. So I got to watch they played a couple songs, like 3 songs maybe. Yeah, and they did like a little interview with them too.
I hope you thought of me as you.
I did.
You rolled.
Oh. I might even text you. Oh, look, they're on. But
you might, yeah.
That was months ago.
Cool. All right, let's keep going. We're what are we, halfway through? No, we're not even halfway through. This is the halfway mark. All right. I should have gone with 5, but I had a lot to say. Okay, I want to talk about Leah Kohl and her album Normal Sounds. listened to this a lot this year, and I think that kind of contrary to what my year-end lists sometimes look like, I don't actually think of myself as someone who enjoys or knows anything about ambient music. I don't really feel like I know anything about ambient music, but every year a couple of albums find their way into my orbit, and every year it seems like a couple of albums end up on my favorite albums of the year. Leah Kohl is a cellist and a composer from Chicago, and she had an album in 2023 called The Ceiling Reposes that was also an album that I really loved, where she kind of brought in field recordings. That album, I feel like it had like a lot of radio, like she would take snippets from radio recordings and work them into her compositions. And obviously field recordings and ambient music are nothing new, but I just love the way that Leah Kohl manipulates, as the album title, normal sounds promises. She works normal sounds into her compositions. Just looking at some of the song titles here, she's got a song called Tennis Court Light and Snow. She's got a song called Car Alarm, Turn Signal. I think my favorite is Airport Fridge, Self-Checkout. She just works these everyday field recordings into her compositions. Which are like mostly cello based, but also have like electronic flourishes as well. This is where I kind of wanted to go back to. This is the point that I wanted to come back to that I set aside earlier. What I like about Leah Kohl and this album in particular is that it asks us to pay attention in a different way. It asks us to pay attention to music in a way that is perhaps growing increasingly unfamiliar for a lot of music listeners. I was reading something I think it was on N+1 recently, about how, I'll send you the article after because it's quite interesting. It was all about Netflix and how Netflix has shifted the film landscape, and how Netflix has also shifted how we encounter film and television and screens. And this part that stood out to me was that some of the people who've been asked to produce content, writers and filmmakers for Netflix, have been asked to have their characters narrating what they're doing so that people don't actually have to look at the screen to be able to follow along. Like they're designed to not pay attention to. They're designed to be taken in while you're doing something else. And I want to read this part too, because I thought it was very funny. So here it is. Several screenwriters who worked for the streamer told me a common note from company executives is, quote, have the character announce what they're doing so that viewers who have this program on in the background can follow along, quote. And then they have a couple of examples of this. We spent a day together, Lindsay Lohan tells her lover, James, in Iron Wish. I admit it was a beautiful day filled with dramatic vistas and romantic rain, but that doesn't give you the right to question my life choices. Tomorrow I'm marrying Paul Kennedy. Fine, he responds. That will be the last you see of me because after this job is over, I'm off to Bolivia to photograph an endangered tree lizard. And so they're writing about this, I think fairly new concept of really like casual viewing. They call it casual viewing in this piece. And I think the casual listening, and I'm not trying to be like a cranky old man about this, but I am trying to like push back against this casual approach to listening as well, because I think that it makes us worse. I don't think it makes us better people, and I don't think it makes us better. I don't think it makes us as better engagers with art to pretend like it doesn't matter, to pretend like there's something else always on the horizon and that it exists just to like, I don't know, be on in the background of whatever else we're doing. And Leah Kohl's album helps me remember that. It helps me remember that I can still pay attention to things. I can push against that kind of like consumer or extraction oriented way of viewing or listening to things.
Yeah. When it comes to like television and film, like I would imagine if I was a filmmaker, that sounds horrible. It sounds like, oh, you're losing a piece of the medium if you're just like expository explanations of or narrating every single thing that you're doing just to for the person who's staring at their phone while they've got it on, can follow along.
And look, we're all a part of it. I'm sure you and I both stare at our phones while we're watching things.
Oh yeah, it's to the point where I'm like, I hate that I stare at my phone as much as I do.
Totally, but we do it anyway.
Yeah, it's now become habit. I think that's part of it.
We're not separate from this. I'm not trying to separate myself from this at all.
No, but if I was like the creator of something like that, I would just be like disgusted if Netflix asked me to like put something like that in there.
Yeah,
I do think music can be used as background sound a little bit more effectively because it's audio, so it's purely like, yeah, you could do other stuff while listening to music. You're very rarely just like sitting with your fingers just perched and just listening to every single word of the song. But
that's what I do every time.
just sit like this, like
yes.
Very good.
Yes. I love that mosh part.
Yeah. Not doing the dancing with it. You're just like, yes, contemplating moshing.
I can visualize the two-step.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine the crowd surfer about to jump on me and getting very angry.
Oh man, we are just cranky old men.
Stay off! Get off me!
The next album that I want to talk about is maybe in a similar vein as well. Then, and that's Old Saw Dissection Maps. I remember finding Old Saw at the end of 2021, and I remember coming on your year-end pod that year, and I had just heard the album, their first album, for the first time, probably just weeks. Might have even been like a couple days prior to that, and I may have even sent you my list already, and having had to change it. I had to add it. It made such an impact on me. They released another album last year, 2023. We're in 2025 now, and then they released Dissection Maps in 2024. And I don't really know how this band operates. They're kind of a bit of a mystery. Their sort of de facto leader is this guy Henry Birdsey. He has another ambient, I think, bagpipe project called Tongue Depressor. That seems to do a lot of touring in Europe, but Old Saw is from, I think, New Hampshire, Vermont, maybe. I don't remember. Around there, New Hampshire, I think. And but all their albums, they have, again, 3 now. They all seem to have been recorded. Like the liner notes say that they were recorded in 2021. So I don't really know much about this band. I'm curious to see if how fruitful they were in 2021, because so far they've got 3 albums that all seem to have come from the same time.
Just for update, they're from Vermont.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. They're described as a network of New England string pluckers, organ drivers, and bell ringers.
That's a pretty good way of describing it. Yeah. I really love the way that they pull from traditional Americana, at least instrument wise. They've got lots of like pedal steel and banjo and bells and harmonicas, but then from that they craft these really long and beautiful and sometimes unsettling ambient, like droney soundscapes. This album, Dissection Maps, was their release that maybe had them, what felt like songs more. They're still long. I think most of this, I think every song is over 5 minutes, but the longest is still under 8. Whereas on their first album, they were more in the 8 to 13 minute range. Second album, continued with some longer songs as well. Yeah, I love what they're doing. I've tried to get a little bit into Tongue Depressor as well. Hasn't stuck as much as Old Saw for me though.
I remember when you sent this to me in 2021 when that record came out, and I think you even kind of were like, I don't know if you're gonna like this, might be not up your alley. But when I listened to it, like I was immediately interested in what it was, because it's drone, but it's using, I saw a genre tag for it called ambient Americana.
Yep.
Which is like that's actually a pretty good term for this particular type of sound that they've got going on here, because it is very much traditional Americana instruments being played in like this post-rock sort of way. And it really reminded me of, there's the drone band from Seattle called Earth, and most of their stuff is just distorted guitar drone type stuff. But in like the mid 2000s, they put out a record called Hex, and it was like a twangy kind of like country inspired record.
Oh.
And it really reminded me of, like, Old Saw really reminded me of that.
Cool.
So that sound is really important to me, because it came out at a time where I was still fairly young, so it was very formative for me. And I really like that this kind of taps into that same style. And I've not really any other bands I've ever heard do that kind of thing besides Earth. So it's a really cool idea. I don't listen to tons of like instrumental music, but this would have been one that if I'd been paying closer attention, I probably would have listened to and really gotten a lot out of, because I really like what they do. It's the kind of thing that makes me want to, like, I'm not a musician in any way, but it makes me want to do this kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah. Well, I don't know how, you know, I think that these kinds of exercises in talking about the music that excited us over the year are fun. But how do you actually edit it together? Do you put like a little snippet from everything in it, or do you just choose a couple?
Yeah, usually I pick a few for each entry that you're going to give me. I'll play like a clip of the song. Usually I just play like the first, for most bands, it's just the first verse and first chorus of the song, and then I'll fade out after that.
Yeah.
I think I remember last time trying to figure out how to do Old Saw, because their stuff is so long that's like, how am I going to get a clip of this that makes any sense? I might just have to find a part that's like, I might just have to like pick a piece of the song and then fade into it and then fade out of it.
Yeah. I hope people find something in it.
Yeah. It's really interesting stuff. I like it a lot.
Cool. All right, a couple more. Let's talk about Porridge Radio. Porridge Radio and their album Clouds in the Sky. They will always be there for me.
How am I meant to know what to give and give me back? How am I meant to give me back, and forgive me back? Give to you, give to me. Hungry for. How am I meant to know? Give to me, give to you back. Sky above, sky below. 5 years more of directional love.
I love Porridge Radio, and I love their album titles. What was there one from a couple of years ago? Waterslide, Diving Board, Ladder to the Sky. That's what it was.
Yeah.
I like that they have some with their album titles.
Their first record is
really
Rice, Pasta, and Other Fillers.
Yeah, they're just having some fun making some sad music. I came to Porridge Radio at their last album, at Waterslide Diving Board, and to me this album feels like a really nice continuation of that kind of sound. It's maybe like a little bit quieter in terms of dynamics, but it's angrier. There's that train again. Yeah, what I really appreciate about this album is the way that it feels like it's a continuation from the last one. I do think that it's a little bit softer or quieter in terms of like the dynamics of the album and the volume of the album, but to me it feels like an angrier piece of art. I think when I first started listening to this, when it came out this fall, I hope that she's not actually like this. I hope that she's doing okay, but to me it feels like the way that she's singing in every song, it sounds like she's about to throw herself into a body of water. And and that's a hard space to exist in, and that's a hard space to write music from. But yeah, I don't know, it really does it for me. I love this album.
I listened to their 2021 record, what was it called? It's the blue and red one. Every Bad. Mm-hmm. Not as funny of an album title. Not as fun. And I remember liking that record that year, but for some reason, like not following up with them on the next two records. I guess that happens whenever you track music the way I do. Just giant, massive lists of records. You're like, I'll get to it, and then I never get to it. Eventually. So sampling this one, I think this is the one I got to listen to the most of going into the recording. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed what I heard. Definitely, I don't even really know how to describe their sound. It's very, I don't know. It's dynamic is definitely like a big part of their sound. It's lots of interesting elements going on here.
It's very dramatic.
Yeah, it's a tough one to kind of like really narrow down exactly what they're doing here.
Yeah, because I don't think that just saying they're an indie rock band quite does.
It doesn't. And that's such an open term now these days that it could be a million different sounds. So yeah, there's like a harshness to this record that you don't get from a ton of albums in the indie rock scene, but it's not hardcore. It's not noise. It's noisy, but it's not like noise rock. I mean, I guess, man, it feels like it doesn't feel like an accurate comparison to say it's similar to what like the Pixies do in the sense of just like noisy and dynamic and like lots of quiet, loud parts of their sound. They don't sound like the Pixies, but they do things the way the Pixies do. I don't know if that's a great comparison, but
no, that makes sense to me. Cool. All right, I want to talk about another album, and I know this is one that I shared with you when it came out. And this is one that you told me very quickly, not for me. It is by Silly, and the album is called Zero Views. This is an album that just exists at the intersection of all of my interests. I love being very, very dumb and smart at the same time, which is kind of the ethos of this album. What does it mean to be very dumb and very smart at the same time? I love the way that Josiah, who previously hosted one of my favorite podcasts of all time, Blink 155, and he has been in some bands that I have really loved over the years. Grown Ups, not the American version, but the Canadian noisy punk band, Grown Ups. And then he was in another kind of like jangle pop, punk, noisy punk band called Prenup. And now he has this project called Silly. When I listen to it, I hear a bit of everything. I hear early Blink-182. I hear early Modest Mouse. A lot of that like Pacific Northwest, I don't know, wispy indie rock. If you like Blink-182, if you like early Modest Mouse, if you like, I don't know, like Phil Elverum, you will, and you have ever wondered what all of those things might sound like together, then I think you will love this album. And then I think that he had some fun with it. If you go on Bandcamp, there is an extremely long and very academic essay about the album that's worth diving into. But I do think that it asks some important questions in the album. Namely, why do we make art if not for ourselves? And I think that that's kind of a thread throughout the album, is that you should do things, you should make art, even if it earns you 0 views in in this internet landscape.
Yeah, I mean, you got to make yourself happy first. Like, that definitely feels like that should be the number one goal of creating anything, whether it be music or a podcast or writing poetry or, you know, like anything, sculpting, painting, something that you want to do and you're going to get fulfillment out of. And whenever you hear stuff, especially in music, when you hear it where you're just like, yeah, that was just like business to put that out. Like, this is like, oh, this is my career is now music. So now I've got to figure out, okay. All right. It's time to crank out a record. All right. You know, like
contractual obligation. Yeah.
Yeah. That's how you wind up with like a terrible 9th Alkaline Trio record, you know, like that kind of stuff. Like, oh, well, it's time for another record for the tour cycle. But they got into it with the intention of creating art. I guess that's important. But yeah, that is important to really. I like that he has an essay about an academic essay about this very silly band.
Yeah, I mean it's like it's programmed drums, it's like sloppy trebly guitar. I don't know. I love everything about it. I listened to it a lot this year. And I know you didn't enjoy it.
No, I actually forgot to actually revisit it too. Whenever I saw the list, so I was like, oh yeah, I should at least resampled at least a couple of tracks of it.
Well, I'll plug the pod Discord just in case you have any listeners who are not on the Discord. You should join, and you'll see me post things like this, and then just receive a chorus of "not for me," "nope, this sucks."
It is always funny whenever you post something like this, and then it's like multiple in a row, and some people are less gentle about it too. I mean, there's no like assholes in there, but there is
not at all.
It is. Some people are just very like, this stinks.
Yeah, look, if you like Bad Religion, you're not going to like this. That's fine.
Yeah.
You shouldn't like Bad Religion, but you should like this instead. All right, I've got 2 more.
All right.
This one is not a surprise. Waxahachie, Tiger's Blood.
Watch it
more than any other album on the list. I love this album. I think it I've talked about Waxahachie on here before, and P.S. Eliot. I've followed Katie Crutchfield and Alison Crutchfield for a long time, although Alison didn't have anything to do with this album, I don't think. And I really appreciate the way that Katie Crutchfield in particular has shifted so many times across her career, and is always pushing her sound forward and in different directions. This kind of breaks with that trajectory, where she doesn't really shift sounds across albums. This is more of a continuation of the kind of work that she did on St. Cloud. Her last album was Waxahachie, and then in between she had an album, a collaboration with Jess Williamson called Plains that was also really good. But here on Tiger's Blood, I think that the songwriting is more confident. The musicianship across the album is great. She has Spencer Tweedy, Jeff Tweedy of Wilco's son, on drums, and just the way he plays drums across the whole album is really worth paying attention to. I love the way that he kind of accentuates the album. And then MJ Lenderman also collaborates on the album. I think played guitar on most of the album and sang on 4 or 5 songs. I remember reading that he was on the album beforehand and thinking like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Didn't really have any thoughts about it. And then when the album came out, just immediately noticing how well their voices work together. I would love to hear a full-length collaboration between the two of them. I think that the title track is probably the best song that she's ever written. Probably one of the best songs of 2024. Just something I can listen to over and over and over again and get something new out of every time. Overall, I think that it is a joy to be able to follow someone across a career and to remain interested in an artist across the career, and to be able to follow someone down their own shifting interests and to be able to maintain your own interest in what they're doing is, I don't know, something that I don't think gets to happen a whole lot.
Yeah, it's wild to see the trajectory of her career, because P.S. Eliot was like a fest band, like playing Gainesville in October, and now they're like Waxahachie's like NPR friendly, like twangy, folky, country inspired stuff, and a lot of that stuff I guess was always there early on with P.S. Eliot, but
for sure.
It's very cool to see someone come from a scene that like you and I and Dylan, like we have a pretty strong emotional attachment to. Like even if we haven't been to Fest in a couple years, I'm never gonna forget Fest, and it will never stop being a big part of my life, even if we never go again. But yeah, it's just wild to see that.
We'll go again. We'll go again someday.
Yeah, I really want to. It's just so hard with everybody spread out like it is, and everybody's got families, and
I unfortunately have a job that like pretty consistently requires me to be around in October. It's a tough time to get away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh well.
We'll go
someday.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the last one. This is my last favorite album of the year. I could have kept going. I think 10 is a good number to cap it at. Last in alphabetical. I don't know if people have been keeping track. I don't actually know. Here, I'm going to admit that I don't really know how to alphabetize things properly. So I don't even know if I have alphabetized things. I remember a couple of years ago reorganizing some records, and my wife helped me out, and she was like, what, how do you have this alphabetized? Like I have things alphabetized by first name. So Cassandra Jenkins would go under C, not J.
So I do the same thing.
But then sometimes I switch like in the middle of it. So
I do the first letter for some reason. I think because so many names are like stage names, or just bands are just a name, but there's no person in the band by that name.
Yeah.
That I'm just doing everything first letter. Like even though it doesn't make sense, but
it works.
So that does remind me. There's a record store not too far from me that does the last name first name alphabetization for artists, but also applies it to band names. So Led Zeppelin's not filed under L, it's filed under Z for Zeppelin Lead, and it's like that is not a person's name.
Yeah, Mr. Zeppelin.
It's just like Floyd Pink. It's like, oh my god.
Oh boy, it's chaotic. Yeah, so this will be the last album. This is Yasmin Williams' Acadia. I also found Yasmin Williams back in 2021, and I don't know enough about American folk music to accurately place her work in its history, but I love the way that she expands her sound here. Brings in a bunch of collaborators across the album to add a bunch of different textures to her compositions. She is a fingerstyle guitarist. I would really like when I listen to her and when I listen to other fingerstyle guitarists, I feel jealous. I would love to know how to play guitar the way that she does. I don't know how you do that.
I feel that way about like flamenco guitar. Like I watch it and I'm just like, I'm so jealous that you're able to intertwine both hands like that.
Yeah, how do your fingers move that fast?
Yeah.
Why aren't your fingers fat?
Fat and slow like mine.
Did you have a chance to listen to this one at all?
Yeah, I listened to a little bit of it. This one was kind of a surprise. Like when I listened to it, I was like, that is not what I expected to appear on your list, because it does have a little bit of the virtuoso guitarist type thing, the little flamenco, little Americana, little bluegrass, that kind of type. Just very interesting. Another instrumental record too. So I was like, oh, this is another surprise. But
yeah, mostly there's a tiny little bit of vocals on a couple of the tracks, but mostly instrumental. It was an instrumental year.
Yeah.
In part.
Well, you also did a lot of writing this year, so that might have contributed to it.
But I can't listen to music really while I write. So what I listen to while I write is have you ever seen those? There's like a bunch of different colors, and it all depends on the frequency. But those like noise playlists on Spotify. There's like a pink noise one, a brown noise one.
Oh yeah. I used to use those to go to sleep too. Yeah.
I listen to pink noise while I write. That's
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't listen to much music when I was in school. Like I would try and listen to music while I worked on stuff, and I would just be paying attention to the music and not working. I was just like, this is not helping.
Not doing it. No. That's my year. That's my year in music.
Yeah. Your list is very different from what the rest of the people are going to be talking about on this, but I'm very appreciative of a different look, because a lot of times when we do the show, it's just me and Dylan. So it's our taste in music and our opinions on stuff. And we don't have guests on as frequently as we did in 2020 and 2021 during, lockdown, when everybody had a lot more time to be on a podcast.
Yep.
And I always say, I'm like, we need to get more guests on. And then we just like never do. And so I like having that other voice, that other opinion on music. Because once you've listened to the 300 episodes of Punk Lotto Pod, I think what Dylan and I are going to think about most records. So right. I like doing these guest list episodes because it's a different batch of music. Usually there's very little overlap on most of these. So
we must fire Dylan. That's the only option.
Yeah. He'll get bored one day and he'll fire himself.
He hasn't done it yet. All right. Anything else?
No, that'll do it. I'd ask you to plug anything, but you don't really do stuff online that you want people to follow. So. You
can follow me if you want, but I see some dancing ladies. Follow me on Instagram.
Yeah, which I always find hilarious when you share those. It's just like, I know you, and I know like your sense of humor, and so you're posting it because you think it's funny.
It is very enjoyable to see who gets the joke and who doesn't.
Do you have people who like earnestly think you like?
I do, yeah. I'll tell you more about that off mic. Well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, thank you for doing it. So we'll have you on this year and actually do like an album or something. Now that you're done with all the doctorate stuff.
Sounds good.
Looks like we got a little more free time. So
yeah.
All right, Cory, thank you so much.
Cool. See you later.
All right, everyone. We are here with a good friend of the show, Jason W., writer of the newsletter Songs About Chocolate Girls. Jason, welcome back to the show.
Hey, everybody.
I think the last time we had you on, have you only done one real episode or did you do two?
I've done two. I did Gaunt and Spark Marker.
Right. So Spark Marker was
Last,
I combined Bark Market and Spark Marker. That'd be interesting. Yeah, that was the last time we had you on, and you've been on some of the listening club calls as well, but those are limited to the $5 patrons. So get in if you want to sign up. But I guess I started this with Cory. What were your overall general thoughts on music in 2024? Good, bad, indifferent?
I thought it was kind of bad, actually. There wasn't really a lot that came out that stuck with me. And like, I know when you're talking to everyone, whenever they get through your guys' top list is like, for one thing, like hardcore, there's one release I have in here that we can talk about, but the beatdown stuff, I cannot do anymore. It was kind of fun when I was like 20 or 30, but now it's ridiculous. It's like that's all that people talk about. I mean, I know there was a bunch of stuff, but I never want to hear Speed or any of those bands ever again. The Knock Loose. I mean, they're not beatdown bands. They're just like, there's way too much metal. Like I said, it's time to bring back the Slayer line. If you're too metal, you're not hardcore anymore. You're just a metal band.
Yeah, hardcore is having a weird year. Dylan and I, the hardcore records we talked about were all not trendy. They were not the bands that were hyped.
Right. Yeah. And then just like punk albums, like in general, there wasn't really a lot, as we talked about, and that hot water music everybody liked, and that was horrible. I still don't get why people like that album.
Same with that Alkaline Trio record. People like that one too.
I thought at first I thought it was okay. Like like, well, this is kind of what I figured Alkaline Trio would do in 2024.
Right.
But after I listened to it, I'm like, this is not good.
Yeah.
Like, so what I try to do is like when I'm trying to, there's a kind of a narrow like lane that it's very hard to find albums that stuck in that lane this year. There's stuff that I maybe, it was close, but it's like you guys went through a lot of those power pop albums and none of that stuff stuck with me. Not like Amen and all that stuff. Just after I listened to it, it never came back. I was just like, I just got tired of that sound really, really quick. It's like I've heard Matthew Sweet. I don't need to hear Matthew Sweet with Weezer or Matthew Sweet with whomever. Yeah. So they're good albums, but there was just way too much of it. It just seemed like there was either, kick you in the face hardcore or there was emo power pop. Those are like the two main genres of 2024, and neither of them really appeal to me.
Yeah, even the like regular emo wasn't that representative this year. Like there were some records, but it didn't feel like it was as overbearing as it has been in the last couple years.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know what to do with like regular punk. It feels like there's like maybe 10 bands who put out records that you would classify as just like punk or pop punk, and none of those stuck with me. Like the Dopamines, the Copyrights. I didn't even listen to the Off With Their Heads record. Just yeah.
There was an Off With Your Heads record.
There's like an EP that came out in October.
The copyrights. The Dopamines was okay. The copyrights was horrible.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah, I
never
don't know.
really been in, but it was. Yeah. Like, I was trying to think of whatever. That City Mouse LP that came out was pretty good, but it just didn't last that long. I liked the first time, and then the second time I went through it, I was just kind of like, this is still good, but not my top 5 good.
Yeah. Yeah, there was that Mean Jeans record that was solid, but I didn't really come back to it much.
Yeah, that was another contender. Yeah, I don't think I went back to it, just the second time to go through my list. I think I only listened to it like once or twice.
Yeah, that's kind of been the trajectory of, it feels like it's kind of been the trajectory of punk for the last, I don't know, 5-6 years. I feel like it's been a while since we've had a real big boom in punk records, because the ones that come out now are mostly legacy acts. Bands have been around for a long time.
Right. It's like I've since like Strung Out put like an album out this year, and I remember I listened to it, but I don't remember anything about it.
Yeah.
It was a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah. I was going back and checking out our predictions that we made at the beginning of the year. And one of the predictions we made was like, we're finally going to get an Orgcore revival. And that did not happen this year at all.
No.
Well, let's get into the records that you have selected for us to talk about. So you've discussed before, I don't know if we discussed this on the actual podcast, but you've at least mentioned in your newsletter that you're not someone who likes to rank albums. You just don't get a ton out of it.
It's kind of hard to explain. It's like, I don't know. It's just like I don't mind when people do it themselves, but it gets to the point where I'm just like, it's like I just get kind of tired of comparing everything that came out that year. And it's like, so when I rated stuff this year, I just put like a emoticon by it. If you got the heart hand emoticon, you're going to make it to the next round. But then after that that's just kind of like, but then when I did it the second time through, I had to like go through like, is this an 8 or a 9? Or 9.5? And so after I was on the 5 that I have, or the 10 that's on the on songs about chocolate and girls, those are like the 10 that rank the highest. And then there was like, there's a couple honorable mentions. I don't do compilations or re-releases, but the Automatic one on the Automatic and the Kill Holiday stuff that came out on Indecision were probably the 2 most things I listened to the most, because they were from the 90s, and that's kind of where my bread is buttered.
Yeah.
So I probably listened to them more than anything else I listened to actually that came out this year. So those are kind of my honorable mentions. 2 of the albums that I wanted to as honorable mentions were High Vis, The Guided Tour. First time I've ever listened to that band, and I understand they're kind of a Britpop sensibility, but they kind of have a hardcore, like a post-hardcore edge to them. And it was just kind of like, as I kind of mentioned, it was kind of like, it was a good album to listen to on the bus where it's gloomy and it's rainy. So I kind of pretend I'm in London. It kind of worked that way. I just thought it was more interesting. I kind of listened, and then I started listening to their older stuff, and it just wasn't as interesting as this album was.
It's interesting because that was a record that I was pretty excited for, because I really enjoyed their last record, which is Blending? Yeah, 2022 record. And I really liked that album. And so yeah, I was ready for this one, and I didn't wind up connecting as much with this album as the previous record, except for the song Mine's a Lie, which is like the second to last song on there, and they made a music video for, and it's the one with like the sample intro to it. That I listened to that song on repeat so many times. I was just like in love with that song, and maybe like one of the less Brit poppy songs on the record too.
Right, that was like the only song on the album I didn't like.
Yeah, it's completely different from the rest of the record though.
Right. Yeah, it kind of stuck out there like a sore thumb, and I was just kind of like. The other album was Drug Church Prude. Kind of made a lot of lists, and I didn't want to like it. I don't really like their singer as kind of a personality, and his voice. We kind of talked about it. I forgot that other album that came out. That's named after a Seaweed song.
Oh, who is it? It's damn, I know who you're talking about.
Right, but that band and this band they're kind of like, it's just like, but Prude kind of. This time I really liked what Patrick was talking about. I thought the song about kidnapping yourself was really funny. And it kind of worked. And then like I could hear the Seaweed influence more this time and a Pineball influence on it more this time.
Weird.
And those are two bands I really like. And so even with the, go ahead.
I remember when that band first came out, they had like a demo, and I was like really into End of a Year Self-Defense Family at the time. They hadn't burned me out yet. And they put up that Drug Church demo, and like the thing that they were really pushing was like Quicksand, and I do think Seaweed was a reference point. And I remember at the time I didn't really think that the Seaweed influence showed that strongly.
Yeah, but I hear more on this one.
Right.
Just I don't know. So like the riffs were very good on this, and then kind of his like repetitive lyrics worked a little bit better this time. Like I've listened to a couple of the other albums from before. The one with the kid on it, I remember that one. And I was just like, I don't know. There's nothing that really grabbed me on them. I was like, well, this is okay. It was kind of like that when we got to the, end of the year self-defense family stuff. It was kind of by the time we got to the end of that, we're just like, all right, Patrick, we've had enough.
Yeah.
And then he started this new thing, and it's, but yeah, this was the album that I like. I don't like, I probably the next album they put out, I probably won't like them again.
Right.
But
yeah.
I definitely like this one.
He definitely burned me out. Like, I love all the end of the year stuff, and I like a little bit of the self-defense family stuff that when it first started. But there was a point where it became obvious that like, oh, he's not trying anymore. Like he stopped writing lyrics in advance. He started writing everything in studio. Like as the song was like finished, he would write it, and you could tell it's just repetitive lines over and over and over again.
Right. Oh, I just realized that High Vis was actually on my top 5. So we've talked about that one. See, this is why I don't rank stuff, so I kind of forget.
No, we're just talking about the albums you liked, so we don't have to have any sort of order.
So I guess there's those two. I guess one was an honorable mention, the other one was not. Should we get into the actual ones that I did to send you?
Yeah. So we'll do a top 4.
All right. So coming in at number 4, Couch Slut with You Can Do It. This was one album that I believe Steve mentioned, and he never talked about it. So I was like, I'm going to check out this band because one, their name is Couch Slut.
Yeah.
And I was really impressed with this one. This one reminded me of 90s AMRAP stuff.
Yeah.
And then you have a kind of a off-kilter singer that kind of remind me of Kate from Babes in Toyland a little bit. And the album was just a wild, crazy. I've missed this sound a lot. There's been a lot of noise bands that come out lately, speaking to you, Chat Pile, that just do not sound like this. This sounded like Hammerhead, not the German band, the North Dakota band, or, like I said, early, mid AMRAP noise, and it's like a sound I really miss. And then you get those 2 creepy stories in it. The one about the friend that wants to date her, and he in there. They broke up, and then you get the creepy story at the end about the boys' home and the ghosts and stuff. And I was just like, this is perfect. This is what I want to hear from noise bands, and then just not like noise for noise sake.
Yeah,
did you listen to this one?
I did. I listened to it in full. This was a band that I remember hearing an interview with the lead singer of when I guess it's their first record came out. It's Spotify has it as like an EP. But it's the one that came out in 2014 and has a rather graphic album cover. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called My Life as a Woman. Woo!
Yes,
that's a cover. But I heard an interview with her on this podcast called As the Story Grows. And I don't know if you know about that podcast, but like 99% of the bands that they discussed and interviewed and talked to on that show were Christian bands. So it was shocking when they did this band around this record. And so like that band, I've been aware of that band for a while, but it seems like this record got probably more attention than any of their previous albums had. And it's a cool, weird record. Like I really liked just how different this album was compared to most other noise rock that's come out in the last few years. And yeah, that Chat Pile record, maybe one of the most overrated albums of the year.
Coming in at number 3, No Plan, Lots of Potential. And that was on Indecision Records, and they have members of Paul Malone, I believe that's who the singer is. And so I don't want to discredit women in hardcore, but there has been a lot of bands that have come out lately that it's kind of like a heavy band with a female presenting singer, and there's a lot of them. And I got kind of tired of that sound very, very quick. They're still playing, but then I found No Plan, who kind of sounds like Kid Dynamite if they had a female presenting singer. A lot of people would call this a pop punk album. I call them a lot of hardcore album because that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. It's perfect. It's like, this is the sound that I'm looking for when I'm looking for new music, is bands that are fast, they're fun, they're catchy, and they don't sound like a fat record band. this one was really good. I think I listened to this one a few times throughout the year.
Yeah, this was one that I listened to. I think the same week it came out, based on your recommendation, because I think the Kid Dynamite comparison was the thing that was like, really, we don't have a lot of Kid Dynamite style bands anymore. So I was definitely intrigued by that. And number one, it's a 15-minute LP, so
yep.
I'm a massive fan of those. But you're right, it's fun. It's super fun. Like I would love to see this band live, because I bet the stage diving would be wild, but in a way of like a Paint It Black show is, just
Right.
hundreds of people just like running and leaping off the stage. So yeah, this was a really fun album that man, I would love to have more of this stuff. And I know the specific type of band that you were talking about whenever you mentioned, like, the female fronted type bands, and it
Right.
they're all kind of playing the same lane of hardcore. So
Yeah, it's just like stompy hardcore, and then they'll maybe try to throw in something a little weird. Like they'll try to put in Kohl, or they'll try to do a little weird psyche thing, or like, I don't know. And those bands, and that's fine, but I kind of want them to go more into those directions instead of just playing the stompy hardcore, because I've had enough of stompy hardcore this year.
yeah, it's been overwhelming.
So number 2 was The Forecast with Good Journey.
So where you supposed to be if not laying here with me? You know there's time-based art, so let's make it ours. Painted like a movie set, I'll never forget how we met, or how the light moved the room, or the lines we changed to use. Why does it feel so impossible to let you go? Why does it feel so impossible to let you go?
So I remember your Motion City soundtrack album where you're kind of like, no, this is the good band in those lanes. And The Forecast is that band for me. They were on Victory Records, and they were kind of lumped into like this swoopy hair girl gene thing, but they're really not. They're kind of I was listening to their older stuff, and that stuff's definitely more post-hardcore kind of crunchy dynamic thing. And this album's kind of more of a loud indie rock album. Not like a loud, like not power poppy, but still kind of loud, still kind of like a 90s indie rock album that didn't rely on like sounding like the Lemonheads or Sugar, but just kind of like the band that I would hear, the second hour of 120 minutes. I like the male, female vocals that goes on with them. I've always really liked this band, and then this album came out. It just kind of hit I was like, oh yeah, I'll listen to that, but I wasn't expecting it to be this good, and it turned out to be a pretty good album.
This one was the biggest surprise to me on your list, because when I saw the name The Forecast, I was like, that The Forecast? And then I looked it up. I was like, oh, yep, it is the same Forecast. Like, they weren't one of the bands that I listened to much back then, but I remember the exact scene that they came out of. And you're right, it's similar to like the Motion City soundtrack era of stuff. And so I was a little surprised by that. But then I also remembered that you used to write a lot of music reviews back during this time period too. And
Right.
so it made me think like, oh, this might be one of those ones that just like stuck out back then for you. And then when they came back with a record, you're like, why not? And then wound up really enjoying it.
Right. So speaking of Motion City soundtrack, the only time I've interacted with the guy with the big hair, Justin.
Yeah.
I was in a car with him, and he was playing The Forecast, and I go, oh, I like this band. He goes, yeah, this is a great band. And I think that was like the only conversation we had in the car. My friend Tommy was with us too, but yeah, we had to go somewhere with him for some reason. But yeah, that's why I always kind of when I think of the full Forecast, I think of Motion City soundtrack because of that one interaction in the car.
Yeah, they're tied together eternally for that. It's very even though nobody else makes that connection, but that's funny.
Yeah. And then number 1 was the EP, The Sweet Teeth, Move On. This is 3 songs of perfection. If you want to know the sound I like, this is the sound I like. It's noisy, 90s influence. 90s influence rock. It reminds me of Sugar, and it reminds me of a band called Stark Market, or Star Market, not Stark Market. I'm getting Stark Weather and Star Market. It does not sound like Stark Weather. But it reminds me of the Star Market. It's just this really crunchy Dinosaur Jr. type stuff, but it's really upbeat. The vocals are kind of, the low point of it, but they're not too bad. I believe they also put this on a compilation with a bunch of other bands, so it kind of got confusing. And then they put out another single later this year, and that song was even better than anything that was on the EP. So I'm really looking forward to see what this band does.
I absolutely love that your number 1 pick of the whole year is like a 4-minute long EP.
I listen to a lot of music, man. I got to get through this stuff.
But that being said, I fucking loved this thing too. Like, this is that episode will be up by now. This is my number 1 EP of 2024, or maybe, yeah, I think it's my number 1. Like, I loved this thing, and it was so short. And I think you said in the Discord somewhere that you need bands like this and like Amusement to hurry up and put out something longer so that we can actually really sink our teeth into them.
Right. Yeah, I would put them in the same camp as Amusement. Like, they put out a new single 2 songs this year too that were great, but I don't think they were like officially released, so I didn't count them.
Yeah, they have. I think the EP that's coming out. It's coming out soon, and it's going to be like a 3-song EP too. They're also doing a European only like compilation that collects like all 3 of the EPs, and then like a cover that they recorded for something else. I assume a comp. I just never heard it. Mm-hmm. So like they're going to collect it all together, but even then it's still like 8 songs, right? 2, 4. Yeah. Right. And we've already heard most of them. So yeah.
It was kind of like this. Yeah, I'm sorry. It was kind of like this band, Sweet Teeth, and then Amusement, and then Molly too. They were kind of, I think they're on my top 10. They were kind of the same thing, but they're a little bit more lighter. But yeah, it's like, could those 3 bands just like tour together? I think Molly's from, I don't even remember, Germany maybe? I can't remember offhand. No, not Germany. I think they're from the UK. But either or, it's like, could those 3 bands just tour here and I would be happy. I'd actually go out and go. Yeah. If they toured here. So
looks like Molly are from Denmark.
Denmark. I knew it was somewhere. They're pretty good too. They didn't, they were just kind of they're great, but not as good as Sweet Teeth. So
yeah. What was the split that the Sweet Teeth songs were on? Because I never even saw what that was.
It was from their label, and there was like 2 other bands on it. I wonder if that's
because like I only listened to these songs, and it's called like Split. These songs are called Split Image, like the 3 of them together, and then but that's just the 3.
Oh no! So there was a thing called Sweet Teeth, First in Line, Gasp, and Statues, Capital Statues, Honor Roll of Hits. And it came out on the same, or did it come out on Lovely? Yes, it came on, Lovely Records in 2004 as well. They were the only. Did I listen to that? Yeah.
Yeah. Did you hear any of those other ones?
Yeah. But the 3 songs by Sweet Teeth are the same as the EP. I remember
Look at the track listing now.
Mhm.
It looks like there was a fourth song by Sweet Teeth on there too. It Won't Last.
Really? I only see the 3. I see Move On, So Gone. Nope, that's First in Line. Is It Won't Last? The band First in Line.
Oh, okay. They just
this
have
is
it.
Move On, So Gone, Walk, and yeah, they might have it wrong, but
Yeah, it's in the little like bio, or like when you go to the to order the vinyl in the little drop down there, it's where it says. So you're right. It's probably just a misattributed typo.
yeah, I don't remember any of the other bands on there.
Yeah.
At all. I listened to it, but I don't remember it.
Sweet Teeth are from Sweden, so yeah, get us a European tour package. Come over here.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of like wondering, are they ex Star Market? Star Market put out an EP2 this year that wasn't anything, but they at least did it. I'm trying to see if no, there's only 2 members listed. I'm not going to say their names because that'd be almost racist. Yeah, no, the 2 members, I haven't heard of any of the other bands that they were in.
Yeah, I'm looking now. Yeah, unfamiliar. Just kind of out of nowhere, little duo here. Or I guess it's it's a picture of 4 people, but yeah, you're right. There's no names.
Yeah, those are the only 2 that they mentioned. So
yeah, that's so good though. 4 minutes of music that's just better than so many other like 30-minute albums.
Right. It's just it hits that, no pun intended, that sweet spot, just perfect. It's just like they didn't mess around with anything. Like I said, the new song, the drummer, I don't know if they got a different drummer, but he does more of Murph from Dinosaur Jr. type stuff in it, and that was really cool. But it's still at the same upbeat as these 3 songs. So yeah, I can't wait. Hopefully they put out an album next year. That's going to be a contender.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For sure. There's like so many bands out there right now that it's like as soon as they put out an LP, it's like, man, unless they just like fell off a cliff, from the EP to the LP, but they have the ceiling is so high for those records.
But that's all those were of our 7 or whatever I talked about, but I don't remember anything else that I remember a lot of stuff that I listened to that I was like, I kind of want to just go through other people's lists and make fun of them, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, there's I think I mentioned this. I don't know what order I'm going to put these in when it comes to listening for the audience, but Cory and I talked briefly about how tiring it is to look at everyone's year-end list, and it's like the same records on every single list, and it's just it's frustrating because it's like I want to know more. I don't need to hear about Charlie XCX again.
I don't even know who that person is, but now that horrible album cover, that's on a major label. Man, what was the label? Like, no, give me something else. Yeah, but whatever. But yeah, I saw that everywhere, and that in I don't know, that Beyonce album. I was like the Beyonce country album.
Yeah, I
heard that was awful. Didn't Dylan listen to it?
Did he?
Or did you listen to it?
What I heard was on TV at work, so they made me listen to it. I heard a couple tracks from it because part of my job is that I roll commercial breaks for the Today Show, and they're obsessed with Beyonce and Taylor Swift. So it's anytime either one of them like farts, they're like, oh, we got to do a whole story about it. And when Cowboy Carter came out, all the clips they played, I was like, oh, these are bad. Like, these are bad country songs. They're not good. I might have to put this behind a paywall now, though. I don't want the Beehive coming after me, but...
Oh, God. Yeah, see, that's the problem, is that you can't say anything. They'll hunt us down.
Yeah, they'll listen to this random punk podcast and be like, how did they say a negative thing about Beyonce? I don't even really care. Like, I'm not even saying that her other stuff is bad. Like, I genuinely have no opinion on anything else she ever did. Just these country songs where I was like, this is bad country. And people were like upset that she wasn't nominated for like CMAs. And it's like, because it's bad and clearly an obvious attempt at trying to win over the country music crowd because she felt Oh, she like did an appearance a couple years ago at the CMAs, and like she felt like she was not respected, and so she's like, "Well, I'm gonna make a country record to make them respect me," and then it didn't work either.
I guess like the only album I saw on the list that I actually listened to, well, the High Vis I saw in a couple,
Yeah, I saw that.
but that
yeah.
Mannequin Pussy album, oh God, that thing was so bad. There's like people, there's like, first of all, the band, just looks like they look like how you would expect that band to look like.
Yeah.
And then the songs were so not like jagged sounding, but everything, it was just so abrupt on the different types of sounds on it. I'm like, how can you like compare this to, I don't even know. I remember, who was it that compared it to Bandsplain? Good old, she said she compared it to Hole. I'm like, she said it doesn't sound like it, but it kind of has that same attitude. I'm like, what album are you listening to? I just heard like snotty, like the worst people that you don't want to hang out with punk rock. That's what I thought about. It was like hipster punk rock, and I can never stand that stuff.
It feels like what punk rock by committee would be. Like, it's just like, oh, we designed this band to be the perfect epitome of what is modern punk rock. And
right,
I saw them open for Hot Snakes on a tour. And the further I get away from that, the more I'm like, why did that happen? Like, how did was that Hot Snakes record on Epitaph? It was the last one, Jericho Sirens.
I don't know.
I don't
remember think so.
Yeah, I don't know. But when I saw them, she was like, I'm going to have, she had never heard Hot Snakes before accepting the tour. And so her first time hearing Hot Snakes was basically on tour with the band, which that's a great way to experience a band for the first time, seeing them live and have them be there. That was on Sub Pop. That's what that record came out on.
Okay.
So like, that's a great way to experience a band for the first time is live, and getting to see them every night was probably amazing. And she was like, well, oh man, I'm going to have to start stealing some riffs from them. And I was always like, that I'd like that. You should. And they never did. It never felt like they borrowed anything from Hot Snakes.
Yeah.
Well, we wrapped this up with some shit talk, so that's fun.
Of course, that's always what I'm good for.
Get
me
I love
started. I just don't want to get anybody in trouble. I just don't want you guys being like, who's that guy I was on there? I've never listened to this podcast again. All he does is talk crap about my favorite bands.
Yeah, I don't know how many people we have listening to this show who would be mad about that, but we'll find out, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think any of your fans would be like, oh, he's making fun of Beyonce. We better get at him.
Yeah.
Round up the girls.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And, well, one for, being a supporter of us for a couple years now, I feel like, and being part of the listening clubs we've done a few times this year, and looking forward to the first one we do in 2025. If we could find a record that is interesting enough for all of us, but
well, let's do that Bleeding Through album.
Oh, I already know Dave would hate it.
Oh God, he'd be like, "What is this?"
We're all gonna hate it, honestly.
I know.
But yeah, we appreciate you, and I highly, highly recommend everyone go check out your Substack, Songs About Chocolate and Girls. You attempted a podcast this year. I kind of wish you kept at it, but I also kind of get, if you're not feeling it, you're not feeling it. But I enjoyed it, the handful of episodes you did manage to produce with that one.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to bring back 1,000 Plays or Less somehow, but I just haven't decided how. I like it, the noise is a little bit better in my new place, so that's kind of one thing. But oh man, I worked so hard on that break episode, and it lost it. I worked on that thing for like 2 hours, and I mean, I know that's not much, but it was for me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I could always bring it back, but I would need to get a different mic, something a little bit more expensive. You can cut all this out.
Well, I'll make sure to include a link to the newsletter in the show notes as well. And yeah, everyone go check it out, because you're in the letter D still. You still got a ways to go, right?
Yep. Yeah, I just counted up the D's, and it was a crazy amount of how many I got left to do.
Yeah.
Now they're like 200 albums or something. It's D's because of the German stuff.
Right.
that we talked about, that kind of, I should have moved all that. And then it wouldn't have been so bad. But
But yeah, it's a great read. So everyone check it out. And Jason, thanks so much.
yeah, no, thank you for having me on again.
Thank you. All right, everyone. We are joined here by longtime friend of the show, host of the podcast, One Band, Five Songs. Welcome back, Mr. David Brown.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. And my cat knocks my microphone off my stand.
So much for her. Is it her or him? I can't remember. Him. So much for him just laying down.
Yeah. He was trying to bite me a minute ago. Okay. I'm good. I am ready to be finished with my best of 2024 content. And you are my last stop on the way, on the road to 2025, I guess.
We'll try to make this as painless as possible.
We really enjoy having you on. I think last year you were the only guest that we had on for these guest list audio.
Yeah, I think so. I think there was like all sorts of scheduling issues.
Yeah, I had initially like planned to have a couple more people on than just you, and then I don't know the reason why. It just didn't work out, and it was fine because that audio was still like an hour and a half long. So we managed to talk long enough. So
yeah, I have a bad habit of just not shutting up.
Hey, maybe it's why we like podcasting so much.
Exactly.
Well, before we get into your picks for the albums of the year, what were your general thoughts on 2024, specifically for music?
You know, it was weird. I was thinking about this the other day and kind of preparing for coming on here and trying to wrap my head around what the year was like. And in so many ways, it was a year of music that as new music was coming out, I wasn't really on the pulse of things. I wasn't paying that close of attention. Essentially, I had this routine of on Friday mornings, opening up Spotify, going into like the Discover section or the little bell that shows you what new things have come out, and looking for new releases from artists I follow, and just dump them into my tracking playlist to get to at some point. And the vast majority of those, I don't know if I ever listened to once. In fact, I was looking at that today, and I was like, man, I wonder, let me look through this. I'm like, oh my God, I did not listen to, so case in point, the first things I put in here were the American Thrills Parted Ways record. Never listened to it. Dave Haas's Verses, which I did, that ended up on my list. Broadway Calls Coming After You. I listened to that a few times. Flight Mode, the 3 times. I don't even know what the hell that is at this point. The Extra Arms that you mentioned, the single on, or the 2-song single that you had on one of your bonus audios with Gates of Steel. I did listen to that. That was quite good. And then a Mercy Union EP. And then the first thing that really grabbed me this year, which we'll talk about because it's on my list. So yeah, it was weird. And how many things are like, there's like 16 or no, about almost not quite 1,200 songs on this list. So there's a shitload of stuff on here, but again, so much of it, I either listened to a bit and was like, and just never connected with it or never got around to it at all. And it was also strange. There's artists that I really like that put out records that when I listened to them, I really liked them. And they ended up like on my bigger top 30 list, but they weren't something I went back to much. And that's it, when I was putting together my full list. One of the things I actually did was go into Last.fm, into the Scrabbles, and set the date range from, January 1st to whatever date it was, and was looking at, okay, what did I actually listen to the most? Because Novel thought, if you listen to something a lot, you probably like it a lot. So I used that, but yeah, and also on top of that, listening to shows like IndieCast, which I listen to pretty much every week, so often I had no idea what they were talking about. First of all, when they go on their sports rants, I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And I like both of those guys. I've read a number of Stephen Hyden's books. I think they are good music journalists, but so many things that they talk about, like I don't know what the fucking MJ Linderman is. I've never listened to Charlie XCX. I think after Stephen Hyden talked about the Liquid Mike album, I think I listened to that a little bit, but it also never grabbed me. And so I don't know, it's weird. Like things they'll talk about, the way they describe stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, I'd probably like that. And then if I go and start to play it, I'm like, I don't know, this is like, it's too NPR. It's not gritty enough or something. I don't know. It's really hard to explain, but the older I get, the harder time I have really concentrating on new releases. And I'll watch what all the discussions on Fridays in the Discord about, I've got this and I've got this and I've got this. And I'm like, y'all, I just woke up. What are you doing? I don't know what you're talking about. So that was a very long answer to your very short question.
Yeah, it's funny. You'll hear, I guess, the other people, their take on that question too. But the general common theme, I think, that I've run into across, you, Jason, Corey, Dylan, me, like everything that we've all like thought about 2024 is that it was kind of a weird year for music in a way that's hard to kind of explain, because we certainly found plenty of great records to listen to and talk about. You have your huge list with like 30 records that you usually put together. Dylan and I did like 25 albums, for our episode. So clearly there was a lot of really good stuff that we liked. But when I was like hard pressed to think about it, I was like, I don't know, it seemed kind of like a down year. But I don't think it actually was. So I don't know if it's just, I don't know.
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that there aren't as many big zeitgeisty things anymore. We've all become so self-segregated and segmented, if I can speak, into, our own little silos and our own little things that we like, that having consensus is really hard. And even like sometimes I'll hear y'all talk about something that happened in a year and like, well, everyone was talking about this, and I'm like, wait, who's everyone? Because it's all, I don't know. It's I'm not explaining this well, but it is, yeah. It's just, I think things have gotten so siloed that you find who has similar frames of reference and similar tastes to whatever you like as an individual, and kind of stick with those, like-minded folks and see what they like. I'm actually surprised almost every year, or at least the last few years. There are a couple people on social media who will either send me DMs or respond to my posts about my lists about stuff, and I'll like get really good interactions. And the fact that anyone out there cares enough to one, read my list, but two, look forward to them is mind-boggling to me. So I don't know. There's less and less consensus in the world, and I think that's a trend that's probably going to continue for better or worse.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think the consensus that you do tend to see comes from like the bigger publications, because it's, I don't know, they all reviewed the same records, so they all, chose the same records to talk about.
Oh my God, and that is so boring. Looking at the lists, and it's like, okay, where are they going to put Brat in this year? Mm-hmm. Where's that MJ Linderman album going to go? Where is Beyonce going to go? And, and I'm not throwing shade at any of these records. I'm sure they're great and people love them. I don't know, I never listened to any of them. But that's just me. The other thing I've noticed is I will get into, I will just dig into something. Like a couple years ago, for whatever reason, I decided I'm going to listen to the entire discographies of my favorite artists. And so I think I started with Swingin' Utters, and I listened to their entire discography. And then I did that with most of U2's discography. And I did that with a number of artists. This year, I decided to really dig into the big music. And I got into The Alarm, and I listened to The Alarm a lot. I really got into Gang of Youths and listened to the shit out of them. So for me, it was almost more like a certain sound or a certain feel that was connecting more with me. And it's kind of in my silly breakdown of, a band, it can be either a U2 or a replacement. And this year I was definitely more of the going on the U2 side of things. But I digress.
Well, we mentioned it. You do have a blog. The blog is oklahomalefty.blogspot.com.
Yes. Our good friend Steve has been gracious to purchase oklahomalefty.com for a number of years for me, which has been very kind. I'll probably tell him this year to save his money and not worry about it, especially since I post so little on here anymore. Last year, in 2023, the only thing I posted was my year-end list. In 24, I did post an album review and then my year-end list. So posted a little bit more.
You increased by 50%.
Yeah, exactly.
I do recommend everyone check out Dave's list because he chose 30 records to talk about, and we're only going to lightly talk about 5 and then get more into 5 more, but that's another 20 to check out. So definitely recommend people check it out.
Yeah, so that means we're going to look at the top 10.
Yeah, yes. I said that in a really weird way. I don't know why.
Hey, it's better than how the soup is cooked.
Oh, man, I was dying when you said that. On the latest One Band 5 songs. Because I was just like, it feels like you're mixing two metaphors. Because I think it was like a mixture of, how the sausage is made is the typical metaphor you were going for, but also kind of like the too many cooks spoils the broth type,
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, this is a fun little mix of idioms here.
Yeah. The older I get, the more I've noticed I do stuff like that where my brain locks up and I'm trying to explain something. And where it makes me feel like a real fool is when there's like a very simple word I can't remember, and it's the name of something, and I'm like, yeah, the gimmick that you do the something with, and they're like, you mean a tab? Yeah, that.
Yeah, I keep telling my wife, I'm like, I think my memory's getting worse in a way that I think is faster than it should be. Like, I don't think it's supposed to be getting this bad this fast. It's like, I need to take some like ginkgo biloba or something. Just do some Sudoku or something so I can, so I'm not just a mess in 30 more years.
I've never played Sudoku.
I don't like it because it's math, so I don't really have fun with it. I've tried it before, and I'm like, I don't like this at all. Give me one of these word find.
I need to try some of the New York Times games because I subscribed to the New York Times recently. I think there was an article I really wanted to read, and I think they do good work. So now I've got access to all this other crap, and I'm like, well, I should probably take advantage of it.
Yeah, I usually play the Wordle, and I usually play the crossword mini.
Yeah, I've never done the Wordle either.
Wordle's fun. Sometimes you're like down to the last word, and you're like, what the fuck is this word?
Yeah, I think why I'm skittish to do stuff like that is traditionally when I'm playing games like Scrabble or Boggle, the words that I come up with are 3-letter words.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I played Words with Friends with my wife for years, and out of hundreds of games we played, I probably won like single digit number of times. She has such a better vocabulary than me. And then I learned she was cheating. And I was like, what? You've been cheating this whole time? And she was like, because there's like sites out there where you could put your letters that you have, and it'll like tell you what words it would create. And then I was like, well, that's flat out cheating. So I'm gonna do that now. And I started playing a little better that way. She still wound up beating me every time though. She was just better at like the placement of, getting the triple and double word scores and all that stuff. But
yeah, anytime I've played Scrabble with my wife, or when in years past at Christmas or family gatherings at her folks' house, when we play with her dad, I felt real dumb because they both have excellent vocabularies and are very smart.
I used the. I guess I'll put an S on the end of this word.
That is the caliber and quality of words you get from me on Scrabble. So
yeah, I'm the same way. Well, let's get into it. Before we do your top 5, let's talk about your 10 through 6 picks.
Yeah. Okay. So my number 10 was it's Micah Schnabel's new album, or latest, The Clown Watches the Clock. So Micah is one of the 2 people behind Two Cow Garage. He is very prolific, and this is probably his best solo record, if not his best, second best. It really captures what he does best, which is he does some of the best social commentary in music today, I think. And he, in this record, he mixes that with that alt country, indie punk, rock and roll mixture that he and Two Cow Garage do, and it's just a great record. Let's see. So my number 9 was Ben Lee. This one's for the old heads. This is probably his best album, which is crazy. He's been releasing music for 30 years, and depending on how you count his releases, this is his 16th album, and it is so good. Ben Lee's just an indie rock, indie pop, kind of, depending on what era you're listening to, could kind of fall into that bubble grunge, especially his earliest stuff. But yeah, I love his music, and I've been a fan for a very long time. And this is one that will stick with me, I think, for a long time. I don't know about you, but a lot of times we put together these year-end lists, and you look at them years later and you realize, okay, only 1 or 2 of these really have stuck with me for the long haul. And it's like, okay, in that year, yeah, these other records were great, but
yeah, it's definitely a thing where like I'm putting together a list, and I don't know if it's a case of just me wanting to put a list together as the reason why I included it versus was I super connected to it, And you're right, it is always like just a couple records from your list tend to stay with you as the years go on. Yeah. Because I look at old lists all the time, and I'm just like, well, I would have rearranged this entire thing. Probably would have put stuff on here that I didn't even know at the time,
I have done that with my evolving favorite album records by year list, a document that I have for every year I've been alive. I have my favorite records on there, and yeah, definitely for the last, I've done 15 of these year-end things on the website, and so I've definitely gone through and changed rankings, added stuff that I didn't listen to at the time and whatnot. But so number 8 was the new Restorations record, self-titled, because in the only way to continuously do self-titled records that I don't find completely annoying, pretty much all of their albums except one have been more or less self-titled or referred to as, LP2, LP3. Mm-hmm. LP 5000 should have been LP4, but
yeah.
This thing is great. I know you guys talked about this on the main show.
Yeah.
And it's probably the best thing they've ever done, maybe. Number 7 is Fate and Alcohol by Japandroids, the last Japandroids record. They put out this album, and they're like, bye. And they like did one like real in-depth interview, and we're like, yeah, that's it, we're out. So I know they now live in different parts of the world. And by that, I mean, one's still in Canada, one's somewhere in the United States. And I think I think they went out on a real high note. I'm glad they did a final record, and they're a band that I will get in moods and listen to their stuff a lot. And then my number 6, before we really dig into things, is Undefeated by Frank Turner. I know Jason in the Discord said he assumed this would be my number 1. This was the album I listened to more than anything else this year. But when I was really putting this together, I did that thing that guy who was on the Pearl Jam episode of Bandsplain talked about, which every time a Pearl Jam record comes out, at some point when he's listening to it, he thinks to himself, okay, would I like this as much if this wasn't a Pearl Jam record? If this is some brand new band, would I still like it as much? And so I went with, I did that with this record because, while I think this record is great, I don't think it's as good as the previous one, which is probably my favorite album of the decade so far. But I still, because I listened to a fuck ton of Frank Turner, I listened to the shit out of this thing. So those are the quick hits that weren't that quick on 10 through 6. Have you listened to any of these? You have thoughts other than Restorations?
I don't think I listened. I did listen to the Japan Droids record. I liked it too. It was they're a band that I don't get like a huge drive to listen to that frequently, but whenever I do put them on, I'm like, this is really fun. This band is just really enjoyable. And they went on a high note, I think. I think that's the perfect way to end it. And it's cool they did a final record. There's so many bands that I love that just didn't do a last record. You know what I mean? Like this is our last record. We plan this to be our last record. Because most of the time they break up before, they're ready to even record again, or they just fizzle. Bands fizzle all the time. Those are the ones that are the most disappointing to me. Like, I'd almost rather a band just be like, yeah, we're done. We quit. But the fizzle, that's worse, because it's just kind of like, maybe they'll come back,
Yeah, and especially in the social media age, you're like, let's go look at their, Facebook page or something, and there hasn't been an update for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, well, I guess they're done.
Yeah, it's just more of a, well, it's been this long. Like, I assume they're done.
Yes. Well, I guess we'll get into my top 5. So at number 5, I have Might As Well Be Ghosts by Todd Farrell Jr.
I am not punk enough for your brand new black flag tat. And I'm not Americana enough for a train beat on open hi-hats. And I'm not heavy metal enough for the true cold scene. And I'm not country enough, and I'm not really sure what that means. Well, I like Hank and Iron Maiden, Counting Crows and Suffocation. Is that okay with you? Stevie Ray Vaughan, Drake and Slayer, they're all on my record player. Does that make me less cool? Did I go too far? Did I say something wrong? We walk out of this bar before I finish this song. But if this makes you move and it makes you feel good, and that's just rock and roll doing what it should.
So Todd Farrell is, one, a super nice guy. This guy's great. He was the lead singer and main guitar player in a band called Benchmarks, which basically the pandemic just killed them, like did so many things. And he was also in Two Cow Garage for a while, which one thing I love about this record, and even the cover, is if you have followed his career and you've listened to those other projects, there's so much stuff on the cover of the album throughout the songs that ties into that history. Like there's this one song, Na Americana, which cracks me up every single time I listen to it. That is it's all about how he's just not essentially cool enough for any one particular scene because he likes so many different things. And it's so good. And the thing about Todd is a lot of people know him from these alt country primary projects, but the guy is a huge metalhead and can wail on a guitar. He's so disgustingly good on guitar. And one of the songs on the record, Skulls and Antlers, is all about wanting to start a black death metal band. And there's a whole lyric about wanting to, like, doing a bit about a wizard on a mountain, and then there's the lyric something about a two-finger tapping guitar solo, but then you hear that played on a piano, which is just, it's just so great. So yeah, this is Todd's one of those guys that any project he puts out, I'm there. I will listen to it, buy it in whatever, however many different formats it's available. I will purchase them all, and inevitably, it ends up being one of my favorite things to come out in a given year. That last Benchmarks album was my second favorite record of 2020. So, did you listen to this at all?
I didn't listen to the whole thing. This is one that I listened to clips of just to get ready to talk with you about it. But I did listen to some Benchmarks not too long ago. I think you did an episode on Benchmarks, right, of your podcast?
I did, yes.
Okay, I think after that episode came out, I wound up like listening to maybe one of the first records they had or something along those lines, and really enjoyed that record. And I thought it was a really fun sound that they had going on. Yeah, definitely part of that alt country-ish style of music there. And listening to this, the clips from this record at least, I was like, oh right, yeah, I need to like dig more into that discography, because like the little bit I listened to that you played and the album I listened to, I was like, man, I really enjoyed what I heard, and I'm enjoying the clips out of this record. So yeah, it's someone I should probably, dig a little deeper into their discography, which is kind of a goal I have for this year, is to get more into listening to whole discographies, and especially from artists, like say they put out a new release, going back and like listening to everything else they also did to, get a full picture of their sound. But yeah,
that's actually something I've been doing in the last few years, is really digging into full discographies. And like earlier this year, for shits and giggles, I was like, I'm going to listen to the whole Coldplay discography. And I did, and it is shockingly good. I mean, considering they're one of the biggest bands of this century, that's not surprising that it's at least competent. But yeah, I've got so many in my Spotify. I've got folders within folders within folders of everything. So I've got a specific artist's folder, and then in there I have it broken down by the alphabet, like A through D and everything. And so for a lot of artists, I will have their just full discography, and I will go in and just hit play and listen through to that. Lately, I actually made, in kind of preparation for this, a playlist of my top 10 albums from this year, and I've listened to that a lot. In fact, I listened to these top 5 today while I was putzing around doing stuff. So I guess, move on. Next up is one that was on your splits list, the New Junk City Rudderkin split.
Wide-eyed and coming down. I can tell that
this would have been in my top 10 even if the Rudderkin side had sucked, because the New Junk City side was that good. It's awesome. And that they're a band that I think I even mentioned this last year when we talked, because they had a release last year. They're a band that I'm like, how did I not know who these guys were? And how can a band this good have flown so under the radar for so long? And yeah, I know you talked about this, and this is a record you really enjoyed.
Yeah, I really, really liked this record. I remember when I listened to their last album, I think 2022 Beg a Promise is when that record came out. And I really liked that record a lot. And I may have listened to it based on a recommendation from you, because they were a name that I had seen before, but I didn't know their sound at all or what they did. And I guess they just flew under that radar due to not as much exposure, because I don't know what labels have put stuff out by them.
So this split was put out by Say 10 Records. And what's their other stuff? So Beg a Promise, I think they just put it out. What else? So Same Places, which was their 2018 album, also looks like they might have just put it out themselves. Is that the one? Yeah, I get a lot of times when I'm finished listening to something and Spotify starts playing stuff automatically, their song High in the Morning from Same Places, their 2018 record, will play. It's a great song. Also, not going to lie, I think their name might hinder them a little bit. It's not the best name in the world. Sorry, guys, it's kind of a dumb name. But also the Rudderkin side of this was surprisingly good. I think both of these bands kind of fit into that festcore, orgcore-ish, if not orgcore adjacent sound. New Junk City really does remind me a lot of the bands that were doing melodic punk with a little bit of a twang, kind of like Timeshares, kind of like Nothington. Red City Radio comes to mind. Bands that I listened to the more melodic Hot Water Music records and were like, yeah, let's do that. So that I think they fit in with that. But just for whatever reason, New Junk City was not one that I'd heard of until a couple of years ago, and I'm glad I've heard them now because I think they're outstanding. Yeah,
both bands really do feel like fest punk bands for sure. There were like New Junk City from Atlanta, and Rudderkin are from St. Petersburg, Florida. And Rudderkin definitely has a very Florida sound, like very much like something you would have had on No Idea Records in 2003.
Yeah. They would have been, sharing a bill with the Tim version.
Oh yeah,
at some point.
yeah, exactly. That exact same type of Florida punk that seems to not be as common as it was, but yeah, very big part of that.
Yeah, I miss that. Kind of like you've mentioned in a few of your audios recently. That's a sound that I do miss. It's maybe it'll come back at some point. I mean, most of this stuff is just basic rock and roll music played well. That's catchy, and it always comes back around in some capacity.
Yeah.
Well, moving on. Number 3 is Visitor by John Moreland.
Good morning, midnight. We might not sleep until daylight, but there ain't much I can do about it. No, there ain't much I can do about it now. Some hearts are stone, some hearts are clay. Some hearts look better from far away, but there ain't much I can do about it. No, there ain't much I can do about it now. Can you hear the bells are ringing? Yes, it all comes down to that pendulum swinging.
So I've been listening to John Moreland since 2010, and I firmly believe he is either best when he is fronting a punk influenced alt country band like he had when he was in the oh god, what was their names? The Dust Bowl Souls and oh, for fuck's sake, what? I can't remember the name of the other one.
Black Gold Band.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. So so either when he's doing that or he's playing very, very sparse, soulful, really folk / country music, which is primarily him and an acoustic guitar. His best record, In the Throes, is exactly him and an acoustic guitar, and there's other stuff on there, but you could take every single one of those songs and just have him play it on an acoustic guitar and it would be amazing. Visitor is like that. This is easily the best thing he's done since the album High in Tulsa Heat, which came out in either 2013 or 2014. And it's a nice back to basics approach. He did a record on 4AD, which is such a strange pairing.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, and it was good. And then he did another one that had some almost electronic elements, and by that had a bit of a drum machine, is about how electronic it was getting. So him going back to the basics was such a breath of fresh air, and something I just instantly fell in love with this album. And it's going to be one that I'm going to go back to over and over and over. Did you listen to this one?
I didn't listen to it in full, other than what I sampled to get ready. With him, I definitely prefer the more full band stuff that he's done over the years. You actually had us cover, I believe,
Everything the Hard Way.
Yeah. And I wound up loving that record. And so I've listened to some of the other records where it's just a little bit more just him, for the most part, more stripped back, almost singer-songwritery. And that stuff's really good too, but I definitely connect more with his full band stuff. So with him, I kind of wait to see what other people are saying about the record before I tend to check them out. And so it's like, is this one going to be more singer-songwriter, or is this one more full band? And from what I sampled, it sounds a little mix of both. And I really enjoyed a couple of the tracks that I think, what is it, like the second track I really, really liked.
Let me pull that up real quick. Gentle Violence is the second track. Yeah, it's great. And he has such a gorgeous voice. Like, his voice is so haunting. And if you've never seen his one late night television performance, he was on Stephen Colbert's show. It was in 2013. High in Tulsa Heat had just come out, but instead, of course, he played a song from In the Throes, because he was just going to do whatever the fuck he wanted. And it's all it is him, an acoustic guitar, and he's just sitting there and on a chair with the light on him, and the place is dead silent for the entire performance. It's an incredible performance. I love this, and I think you should listen to more John Moreland, but knowing that you don't connect as much with singer-songwriter stuff, I totally understand why you don't jump on these records.
Yeah, it comes down to, I'm very bad at paying attention to lyrics while I'm listening to music, and singer-songwriter is a genre that is mainly what you're supposed to do. Like, you're supposed to listen more to the lyrics than you are to like the chords, because a lot of singer-songwriter, like, the actual instrumentation is typically pretty simple, nothing like super out there. I mean, there's definitely people that have really great accompanying music and stuff, but so like that, I don't focus on the music, I guess, as closely, or I don't get as much out of listening to those kind of records as much. It's one of those things where it's like, I probably would appreciate it more live, or even just like sitting there with a lyric book. Like, I think that would even like get me to pay more attention and like focus on what's actually being said versus me in the car. And my mind just drifts. I assume it's some form of ADHD that I have that I've just never been diagnosed with. But
well, John Moreland has a really good track record of, on his Bandcamp page, including the lyrics on the records. So, and the lyrics on this album are great. There's if you have time, sit down, listen to the album and read along with the lyrics. I think you'll get a lot out of it. All right, so let's move on to number 2. This is the self-titled full-length debut by the Blackburns.
It's like trying to read a book. All I know when I hear them go is that they got no hook. But when your record's kind of checkered and you're in need of some forgiving, well, that's a strange way to make a living.
So this band is from Philadelphia. It consists of members of 2 bands from Philadelphia that I freaking love, Waxwave and the Rentiers. So just by that alone, I was like, okay, because anything that the people involved with either of those bands do, I'm going to check out. And from the first song that they ever dropped, I was like, oh fuck yeah, I'm all into this. It's like indie rock. It's like punky indie rock power pop is probably the best way to describe it. And this album, I had more fun listening to this album this year than anything else that came out this year. This is the record that brought me the most joy, more than anything else. And it's fun, it's witty, it's smart. It also helps that over the years, at least online, I've gotten to know Joel, who was in the Rentiers. He was also in Plow United. I've interacted with him a lot, and he is a just super nice guy. So I've already built in, this long-term relationship with the music he's produced. And they're kind of like that first album of the Rentals, like not as much Friend of P as the song Waiting. So if you like that, then Blackburns is for you. And they have a song that they talk about Prince. There's a song that's basically a Randy Newman reference. There's one about Drama Club. It's so much fucking fun. Now tell me, have you listened to this one? Because if not, you need to.
Yes, I listened to this one. Actually, when it first came out, you did a piece of audio on this record for your Patreon, and I think maybe you must have posted about it in the group, in the Discord as well. And so I listened to it that day and then listened to your review. And yeah, it's a fun record, very, very power poppy, but also not like doing the same kind of power pop that a lot of bands are doing currently. Like, it's definitely more dynamic and a little bit more varied in the other, influences that go into this record. But yeah, this is a fun album. This is one that when I saw it on your list, I was like, oh yeah. This makes total sense why it's up here so high. And I also really like the Wax Wave records that I've listened to over the last few they did. Is the stuff that I heard, and I really like that stuff too. So definitely musicians that I enjoy. Plow United, never really got into Plow United though. I don't know how big of a part he plays in that one, but
yeah, I think he plays bass in Plow United, but the Rentiers is his band. And what's her name from Chumped she did backing vocals and stuff on a lot of the Rentiers stuff. So if you like this, go listen to the Rentiers.
Okay.
It's great stuff. So I guess that brings us to my number 1 album of the year. And every year it seems like on this list, there is something that seems to be out of left field, or something I know that when you look at it, you're like, what the fuck is this? And I think that is this album this year, and it's Quitter by Caitlin Tarver.
I used to understand, I used to have a plan, I used to make you proud, I used to take a stand. It used to take a lot to get me out of line, but now I hate the thought of thinking I'm right. Chasing certainty was killing me. It's kinda nice to be a quitter, giving up on who I thought that I had to be. Honestly, I'm
So this is her second full-length album. When I was looking into her history, she was like a one of those kind of kid teen actors. I can't remember if it was for Disney or for Nickelodeon, and she had some releases out back then, but then kind of restarted her career. And this is her, since the restart, the second full-length album. I first heard her in 2021 when she put out Subject to Change, and I really liked it. And one of the things I really like about her is her voice. She has this, it's very elegant, and it's okay. So you know how they're in like in indie pop and a lot of indie rock circles with a lot of female singers. There are these singers that have these very, for lack of a better term, delicate sounding voices. Think Phoebe Bridgers. Mm-hmm. So Caitlin Tarver is not on that spectrum. So if you've got the spectrum of Phoebe Bridgers on one end and Jeanette Napolitano from Concrete Blonde on the other, I think Caitlin Tarver's kind of in the middle. And I don't know, there was just something. This was the first album that came out in 2024 that, aside from the Dave Haas record, which was just reworkings of old Loved One songs, this was the first thing that stuck with me. And it's of new releases that came out in 2024. The only thing I listened to more than this was the Frank Turner record. And yeah, I don't know. It's also, there's something about it that, like in my review, I wrote that it's the kind of record that you feel deep in your bones. And every time I put this on, like I can feel all of it. And have you listened to any of this?
Just what I sampled getting ready for the show, because this is another one that not on my radar at all. Like, just, you're right. It is something that like, every year, the last couple of years you've done this with us, you bring something that's just like left field. Like, I've never heard of it. On the surface, I wouldn't have assumed you listened to it. Like, it's just usually something that it's like, who is this? How'd you even find it? Like, it's one of those kind of picks. And I was just looking at her Wikipedia just to see what she did acting wise, and it was all like stuff that I was way too old for when it was coming out. Like Big Time Rush was like the big show she was on, and I was aware of that show as we got these CDs for this Nickelodeon thing called Big Time Rush. I don't know what it is. Is it a real band? Is it a TV band? And, so like that was my frame of reference, I guess. I was like, huh, weird. But yeah, I listened to a little bit of it, and I was like, huh, this every year you got one just like in this like kind of this vein. You get one of these records that really hooks you, and the Baby Queen has done that a couple of times, right?
And I don't know, I think in a lot of ways that thematically and vibes wise, this record was a lot closer to the things I was really digging into throughout the year that weren't new releases. And I think that's one of the reasons why it really connected with me. And also there's one of the songs in there uses the riff from Bob O'Reilly, and I'm like, okay, man. And Dave Haas has a song that uses that riff as well. Like, okay, somebody out there, please make a mashup of these three songs. That would be great. I tried to learn how to do that once, and it failed miserably.
Yeah, that is one thing I could never really do myself either. In all our recording classes like that, it's like I made like these, like he would like give us like a beat in the class, and then you would have to like build on it with like stuff that you could find, or you recorded yourself. But I'm not a musician, so I couldn't record anything. But my only thing was like, I'll take some samples from like TV shows and movies, and like I'll use those as kind of like my hooks, I guess, for lack of a better term. But yeah, very difficult, very tough thing to mix music like that. You gotta know your beats per minute, and I don't know that kind of shit.
Yeah, that's way above my pay grade. So yeah, that's my top 10. Do you have any other thoughts on any of it? These records, the list in totality?
Just what I like to usually say whenever we have guests on for this audio we do every year is that I really appreciate having someone else's taste in music that doesn't have the same last name as me to talk about on the podcast. Because Dylan and I, we grew up together, so our taste in music has very big overlapping parts. So I like it whenever we get other people on here to talk about their favorite records of the year, and because everybody brings something different. There's a little overlap between the couple of your picks and mine, but yeah, it's fresh, it's different, and yeah, I always appreciate you coming on here and doing this.
Yeah, always glad to do it, and I agree. I enjoy, whether it is on these audios or just through the Discord, the community around this podcast. I enjoy seeing everyone's tastes and stuff. And like every year with Steve's list, it's always fascinating to see like what he really connected with, and what, just what worked for him versus the stuff that I really liked. And it's always a fun experiment. Man, we are nerds.
Yeah. We're it's funny because like I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, the only thing I've never gotten tired of is listening to music. I get we were talking before recording about wrestling, and I go through waves where I'm just like, I'm not feeling it. I'm not into it right now. And like watching hockey, I'll go a couple weeks where I'm just like, I don't need to watch this game. Like it's not a super important game. But music is a thing that I'm just like, I have to have and listen to either something new, something old, just listening to something. And there's never a point where I'm like, I'm off music for a couple weeks now. I'm not really listening to music these days. No.
I'm very much the same way. Other than being a parent, the thing that really has probably impacted and defined my life more than anything else is music. And so much of my identity, lots of aspects of my worldview, just so much has come from the music I got into and grew up with and listen to now. Because if it wasn't, then I wouldn't be doing this shit. Because we spend a lot of time doing this stuff. And other people, like, if you ever try to, if for whatever reason any of this comes up in conversation with normies, they look at you like you're fucking nuts.
Yeah. I think we take music more seriously than, I guess, your average person. The average person listens to music all day long. That's completely a normal thing. But they're not usually like writing and talking about it. The drive to be like, I have to write 400 words on, my favorite songs of the year, or, let's record a 3.5-hour podcast about our favorite albums. Like they just listen to the music and they go on with their lives. But there's something in us that's just like, I got to talk about it. I've got to write about it. I've got to learn more about it. I don't know. I guess that's just, I get more out of music than I get out of most other mediums.
Same. Absolutely. That's it's why this is like my sacred texts, and also to some extent Superman comics, but and certain Star Trek. But this is the stuff that has just been hugely important to who I am as a person. And again, though, trying to explain that to somebody is just some of the most uncomfortable conversations ever. And it's like quickly trying to change the subject.
Yeah, I know you said before you hate when people like ask you like, what do you like musically? Because it's just like this, like, well, I'm gonna do a lot of explaining to really get you to understand what I like, where it's more like, no, tell me what you like and I'll be able to relate to that better. Like, yeah,
very much so. I will, when I'm getting to know somebody, I will definitely ask them what kind of music they like, and I love hearing about that stuff. I love hearing what people connect with and what they like. But yeah, when it turns to, or if it turns to, what do I like? It's like, okay, and it's not from any kind of gatekeepery, douchey kind of way, because I hate that shit. It's more of like, okay, how much context am I gonna have to bring into this? What references can I make that they're going to understand? And it just is, it's so complicated. And of course, because I'm a nerd, I'm going to try to get, just my gut reaction is to get into the weeds and to explain too much, when in reality, I should just say, oh, I like alternative rock, you know, because that really covers pretty much everything that I listen to for the most part as a umbrella term. And most people have a general understanding of what that means. And I don't have to explain, you know, different things.
You know, I think I've discovered this little trick whenever someone does ask me, like, so what do you listen to? And I'll be like, oh yeah, I listen to lots of different stuff. But then I try and just pick like whatever most recently I've been kind of like fixated on, and just be like, I've been really listening to this, you know, I've listened to Teenage Fan Club a lot lately, you know, and that's kind of where I'll leave it and see if they're like, oh, well, I don't know them, or, you know, if they do, you know, get into them, then once I get a barometer of like where you are musically, then I can kind of like, okay, let's piece some of this together in a way that like this conversation is enjoyable to you. Because if I'm just like rattling off a list of, you know, well, I've been listening to a lot of metalcore from the early 1990s and having to get into that, but
they're like, what? What's that? They're like, oh God. I
okay.
Don't worry about it. It's not important.
Yeah.
But hey, thank you for again having me on, and it's always fun.
Well, thank you for doing it, and we love having you on. And I'm sure we'll get a Dave Brown guest appearance at some point in 2025. I know you got some schooling ahead of you this year, and hopefully that all goes well for you.
Thank you. Yes, send me good luck, good vibes, whatever. Hopefully final semester of grad school starts next week. So knock on wood.
Yeah, you got this. It's just a couple months. You'll be able to get through it. I heard something. I can do anything for a couple months. I think it's how I heard it described one time. Yeah. If there's an end in sight, I can do it. All right, everyone. And yeah, I'll just record an intro and outro later. So thank you all.
All
right.
Classic.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
To order Punk, call the number on your screen. Rush delivery is available. Remember, this special offer is not sold in stores.